So, hello and welcome to episode 55 of Driver Suit Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. Now, I can say that this has been a week to forget, and that's an understatement. Earlier in the year, I promised I would be exploring some forgotten racing video games and racing software and car software. That's going to be put on hold for the time being because I can't seem to get a recording setup that isn't awful. I don't know what's been going on. I got it to work once, but I can't get it to work since. So I'm going to be putting that on the back burner for the time being, but I do have a backup plan in place, so just be ready. Now, as I said, this has been a week to forget, so I'm just going to dive into the news stories for this week. We're going to start for the first half with NASCAR. I'm not going to lie, this first story stunned me, and it stunned a lot of racing fans. Earlier this week, Bob Pockrass, amongst others, announced that when it comes to driver uniforms in NASCAR, NASCAR has modified the rules requiring drivers to wear fireproof underwear and socks, amongst other things. Previously, these items had only been optional for drivers to wear. Now, this caught most, if not all, of NASCAR fans off guard, as, like myself, we were under the belief that these items were mandatory. And given the safety culture in racing as it's been over the last few years, it should have been mandatory. I don't know why they weren't required by rule, and I also don't understand why now. What could possibly have happened or could have potentially happened to why this rule is implemented now? It's completely up for speculation as nobody involved has any concrete evidence as of the time of recording. This should have been done in years past, but why it's only been done now is unknown. And I agree with the fans. I swear I thought these items were mandatory since almost every driver would wear them while racing. Now, I need to note that a NASCAR driver fire suit, at least in the upper, in the National Series, it's probably the same in the lower tier series. I don't have access to the rule book. But it's the driver suits are SFI 3.2/A5, which is basically it'll protect the wearer from second-degree burns for 10 seconds. Now, obviously, this new rule has given the drivers more time to spare in case of a fire. And although nothing has been released concrete as to what the ratings are, I'm going to take a guess that since the minimum SFI rating is not listed, I'm going to guess it's a SFI 3.31 or the equivalent of a 3.2-A1 suit, which would provide 3 seconds. But since none of the research or information I have been able to find clarifies this, it's just a guess on my part. Also, I'd like to give a message to SFI. You might want to update some of the links on your website that actually link to what you want them to link to, as opposed to just getting a 404 error. Just a thought. Just a thought. Speaking of questionable decisions, our next story proves that no matter how bad of an idea something is obviously, somebody will always try it. No matter how dumb of a suggestion you think it is, somebody will think it's a good idea. Cooking chicken in NyQuil, for example. People were doing it. I don't know why. Lighting yourself on fire in the bathtub for social media clout. I've seen that happen too. No matter how obviously terrible of an idea something is, there's always going to be an idiot who's going to try it. And in this case, it was announced that in 2024, NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Larson will run both the Indianapolis 500 as well as the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. Now, I don't think I need to explain why this is a terrible idea, but I'll explain anyway. Why anybody would think that driving 1,100 miles over 200 miles an hour in two completely different cars over the course of 8 to 9 hours is a complete mystery to me. I mean, yes, Larson is a professional race car driver. He is highly skilled, but this type of thing will push Larson to his limits, if not beyond. When he comes into the Coca-Cola 600, he will have a lot of fatigue and it will hamper his racing. And this is going to be especially crucial at the end of the Coca-Cola 600. This could very easily get him injured, potentially get him killed, and realistically, he doesn't stand any chance of winning either race with this setup. I don't think he has enough seat time to be a competitor in the Indianapolis 500. He'll be too burned out to win Charlotte. It's going to accomplish nothing. It could hamper his career, if not end it. It's a terrible idea, but if he wants to die on that hill, that's his call. I think it's a stupid move myself. A lot of other people agree with me, and I don't see why this should be allowed, let alone encouraged. So we're going to do a bit more positive for the end of our NASCAR news, because I liked this news one, because I was wondering why they hadn't done it yet. But our final story comes to us from Jay Ski, link in the description, where it was announced that in the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, the top 3 finishers will be awarded gold, silver, and bronze medals respectively. And this will take place on a podium in Victory Lane, which is located beneath the Olympic Cauldron. Now, apparently this is going to be unique to this season, but if they go with the Clash at the Coliseum again, I have a feeling it might come back. Now, I like this, but it also makes sense. It makes sense in the context that the Clash takes place at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which hosted the 1932 and 1984 Summer Olympics, respectively. And it's set to be the first stadium to host 3 Olympics with the 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles. I think it's a great move, especially in that context. I also noted, just as a piece of information, there's going to be 40 cars at least, possibly more, trying to qualify for the Clash, but there are only 27 spots in the Clash itself, and we'll see how it goes. Now, I will say that I did think that the Clash was too short of an event in terms of race distance, because it was only 40 or 50 miles. It was really 40 or 50 miles, really nothing. Driving from Chicago to Milwaukee is twice that. And if you're gonna, put the effort in, and you're gonna have the construction efforts and having the teams drive from Charlotte to California, I say make the race longer. I hope they do. I don't know off the top of my head if they have made that announcement yet, but we will see how it goes. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I will discuss some non-NASCAR stories that have taken place this week. And we're back. Before I start, I just want to address something. You may notice that the audio from the previous segment and this segment are different. My microphone stopped working when I pressed record for whatever reason, and I didn't notice until after I had recorded it, and it's not even worth the effort to re-record. But it's just one of a bunch of things that have blown up in my face this week, which is why I come across as frustrated as I am right now. But anyway, we have discussed NASCAR and their news stories for the week. Let's talk about some other stories in the world of motorsports. So we will start with Chicagoland Speedway. Now, late last year, it was announced that the NHRA Route 66 Nationals are coming back to Joliet, and it was also announced earlier this week that Chicago Speedway will reopen, hosting the Super Motocross World Championship, which has just been formed. Now, the 2023 Super Motocross World Championship will consist of the final 3 events of the 2023 American Motocross Association season. There's 2 different categories, and the championship itself consists of a 3-race playoff at the end of the season, which will start in Concord, North Carolina at ZMAX Dragway. This will take place on September 9th. It will continue to Chicagoland Speedway on September 23rd, And then the final race of the season will be at the previously mentioned LA Memorial Coliseum on October 14th. Now, as a Chicago racing fan, I'm glad that Chicagoland won't be getting axed, at least for the time being. And Route 66 opening back up is a great thing too. See, part of the reason that I love the NHRA, and I think the NHRA is probably in the best position to make money in this environment with inflation and rising costs and all that, is because they've actually figured out how to get fans in, and they figured out a way to make buying tickets profitable because they have a foolproof system of perfect strategy. You know what that strategy is? Reasonably priced tickets and a great fan experience. The NHRA general admission tickets to the Route 66 Nationals are $51 for adults. Now you can buy other tickets that have more oomph to them, but for $51 for a ticket in this day and age really isn't that bad. Now the best part about this is, unlike most other forms of motorsports, you can access the pit area for no additional cost. Unlike every other form of auto racing, there's no restrictions. Fans can walk through the pit area, check out the crews, watch the cars being worked on, meet the drivers, and get autographs and selfies for no additional cost. Furthermore, the NHRA and their teams and drivers are also in a good position financially as opposed to many other forms of motorsport because they're not being required to redesign and buy new cars every few years, unlike other forms of motorsports. The NHRA, they make the fan experience great because they make the national events about the fans. I promise you these tickets will sell. I'm going to try to get some friends to go to the event with me. I'm going to try to go myself. I don't know if that's going to work out, so I'm going to work on that a little later. Now, I need to explain the procedure for this next story because it does kind of factor in. I record typically on Sunday nights because usually that's the time I'm guaranteed to have the ability to record. I have a lot of other things going on. It's not always possible to record on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. And I say that because when I discussed the story of the Chinese Grand Prix last week, the situation changed between the time I recorded and the time the video went live. So let me explain what happened. I think it was last week where it was announced on CNN that because of China's very poor handling of the pandemic, most international ports are not doing business with China, and Formula One announced that the Chinese Grand Prix has officially been canceled because of the poor pandemic response. Not the best option, but it was the most viable option. And I said on that particular podcast, and these are my exact words, by the way, quote, "Well, I wouldn't rule out another race being added. I don't think they will add one at this stage. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure they could bring something together that wouldn't be problematic in some way." End quote. Well, that's exactly what was announced. I think it was on Wednesday it was announced that that there would not be a race added, at least at this stage. Now, this is Formula One. They could probably add another one. They may add another one. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they did add another one. But it's just, again, it's not a good option, but it's an option. Now, I should also note that I noticed something interesting in the link to the news story. The link is in the description, and it's announced that with the Las Vegas rule, with the Las Vegas race being scheduled, it indicates that the Las Vegas track is, quote, subject to FIA circuit homologation, HOMOLOGATION. And what that basically means is the FIA has to have safety crews inspect and analyze every bit of the track to approve the track for Formula One racing. Now, in related Formula One track news, the Miami International Autodrome will have a new setup next year. Specifically, they're moving the entire paddock inside Hard Rock Stadium. Now, this is a quote directly from Formula One themselves, link in the description. Quote, as for the track, renowned circuit designers, Tilke engineers and architects will oversee a repaving of the entire 3.36-mile layout with a view to promoting closer racing, opening up overtaking opportunities, and adding to the spectacle. In addition, the paddock and the track service changes, a new permanent 3-tiered paddock club building, which can house more than 6,000 guests in premium suites with a luxury rooftop club, will arrive above the team pit garages, along with the new and additional hospitality experiences in space. Quote, after the incredible debut race, we have been working to flat out ensure that the 2023 event is an even greater experience for everyone visiting the Miami International Autodrome, said Tyler Epp, president of the Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix. I have a feeling that sponsorship may change if things keep going the way they do. But I've also find it interesting that he phrases it as it was such a great fan experience. Now, apparently, there were a lot of people who felt that the fans weren't getting what they paid for in terms of amenities. Some even went so far as to compare it to the Fire Festival, which is, when you talk about fan experiences and that analogy comes up, you've messed up. I think the NHRA makes it about the fans. Formula One should make it about the fans, especially in a market where they don't have dominance and they're trying to get as many fans as humanly possible in the gates. Maybe this is just me, but might not be the best idea to piss off the fans you're trying to attract. I know it's a bold suggestion, but I've seen it work. Now, I've put this story to last because this just burns me. Before I continue, I have to explain this. I am Jewish, and my grandmother fled from her home in France to flee the prosecution from the Nazis. My grandfather was in the Normandy invasion, he took on the Nazis. So this is a story that does get under my skin. Now, our last story takes us to IndyCar, specifically to a driver by the name of Benjamin Pedersen, who will be driving for A.J. Foyt Racing. He will be driving the number 88 Chevy in 2023. Now, the 88 is significant because it's meant to communicate and commemorate A.J. Foyt's 88th birthday. Now, he announced this with this tweet, which I've had to heavily edit to make it readable. Boom! Capitals. Pumped to be in the number 88 at A.J. Foyt Racing, at Team Chevy, at Sexton Company's wagon with the iconic coyote red livery. Couple of emojis. Can't wait to get on track with this beauty in 2 weeks at Thermal Club. Now, why am I talking about this? What is the issue here? Well, A.J. Foyt Racing also races the number 14. Now, if you're familiar with what 1488 means, you understand why this is an issue. If you don't, allow me to explain. 1488 is, according to the Anti-Defamation League, a hate symbol. In the ADL's own words, link in the description, and I did edit this because I'm not going to read any of the offensive stuff. 1488 is a combination of two popular white supremacist numeric symbols. The first one is shorthand for the 14-word slogan, which I will not be reading here. The second is 88, it stands for the traditional Nazi greeting, which is, again, I'm not going to say that here. H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, so HH. Put 2 and 2 together. Together, the numbers form a general endorsement of white supremacy and its beliefs. As such, they are ubiquitous within the white supremacist movement, in graffiti, in graphics, and tattoos. End quote. Okay. Did anybody in A.J. Foyt's team seriously not realize how this could be misconstrued in the implication here? Again, it's not like this is too difficult of information to find, because I literally found it in 10 seconds on Google. This is not something that you can fly in this day and age. I'm sorry, but it just isn't. And I would not be shocked if the number at some point changes because of these implications. Because remember, we're at a time where sponsors are not going to be tolerant of this kind of stuff anymore. I mean, look at the fact that, Kyle Larson dropped the N-bomb on a stream, and he's still not able to get more than a few sponsors outside of Hendrick Cars and Valvoline because of it. And I'm also not the only one noticing this, because a lot of other people are talking about this too. If you want sponsors on that car, you better change the number of that car real quick. It's not a great look, and it's not going to get you sponsors. It's going to make you look bad no matter what. Okay, I've ranted about this enough. I'm tired. It's been a long week, trying to get things to work and things blowing up in my face. So I'm just going to end it here. I'm Dave Farsley. If you like, comment, share, and subscribe, I'll see you next week for episode 55 of Driver Seat Blog Radio.